Amidst a rapidly changing landscape of fashion, families, and freedoms, political violence shocked the nation. Parents struggled to protect their children from the predatory practices of corporate America, and the British remade pop culture in their own image. The product of it all? A cartoon dog. Hi, I'm Dan Larson, and this is the history of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Scooby Doo, Where Are You is an animated series that ran 25 episodes over 2 seasons on CBS from 1969 to 1970, then came back, sort of, briefly in 1978 on ABC before giving way to the much larger Scooby Doo-niverse of shows that followed. To be clear, this video is focused on the creation of the character and the episodes that aired explicitly under the name Scooby Doo, Where Are You? We'll touch on pieces of the other series, but this is not a comprehensive video of all things Scooby Doo. Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby-Doo are 5 friends who travel around solving mysteries. They have a tour van called the Mystery Machine and a reputation for following the clues wherever they lead. And those clues always lead to the same place. Some old guy, some eccentric townie, some scammer trying to use a supernatural charade to scare people into getting what they want. Things are never what they appear to be, and yet always exactly what you think they are. Scooby and the gang will do everything they can to prevent criminals from getting away with their crimes. They'll put their own lives in danger to unmask the cosplay-indulgent perpetrators who have no regard for the law. When the police can't solve the crime, when there's no one else to turn to because it seems like the right person for the job is an exorcist, who you gonna call? No, that's not the right question. The right question is, Scooby-Doo, where are you? Thank you to 80stees.com for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description below and use code TOYGALAXY to get 30% off your order today. I'm currently in my 6th decade on planet Earth. The 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the aughts, the teens, and now the 20s. And while a lot has changed, there's at least one thing that hasn't: my taste in clothing. It's t-shirts all the way back. Lucky for people like me, you know, people with torsos, 80stees.com is also t-shirts all the way back. T-shirts for any occasion you might need a t-shirt for, which, again, for me, is all occasions. Going to the movies, a concert, a ball game, a TED Talk, visiting family, getting groceries, walking the dog, dentist appointment, wedding, optometrist, colonoscopy. Find the shirt that's right for you. And while you're there shopping for yourself, maybe you find something for someone else too. Your mom, your dad, your veterinarian. They've got shirts for teachers, artists, writers, and all your favorite YouTube editors. You can buy the shirt that I'm wearing in the video you're about to watch, not the actual shirt, but one just like it. Click the link below and use code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order today. Again, that's code TOYGALAXY for 30% off your order. And thanks again to 80stees.com. Bill Hanna and Joseph Barbera met while they were both working for MGM's cartoon department in 1937. A twist of fate seated them at desks facing each other, and just a few years later in 1941, the two cartoon legends created the two cartoon legends, Tom and Jerry. In 1955, MGM cartoon department head Fred Quimby retired, passing the responsibility of studio leadership to Hanna and Barbera. That said, MGM decided to shut down the cartoon department just 2 years later in 1957 to coast on the library the studio already produced in the 2 decades prior. MGM might have been done with making new cartoons, but Hanna and Barbera weren't. With funding from Screen Gems, they established their own studio called Hanna-Barbera after Joe Hanna won the coin toss to pick the name. Hanna-Barbera kicked off the new studio with their new series Rough and Ready in December 1957, followed by the Emmy Award-winning Huckleberry Hound in 1958. In 1959, Hanna-Barbera hired sound editors Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, who, like Hanna and Barbera before them, found their creative aspirations to be a perfect match for each other as they moved from editing to writing. And in 1961, Hanna-Barbera recruited character designer Iwao Takamoto, who spent the previous decade working for Disney on Cinderella, Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, Sleeping Beauty, and 101 Dalmatians. As Hanna-Barbera expanded their stable of talented artists, writers, editors, and musicians, they produced some of the most popular and enduring cartoons of all time. The Flintstones debuted on ABC in September of 1960, followed by Yogi Bear and the Jetsons through 1962. To be clear, the Flintstones and the Jetsons were created for primetime television broadcast during the week. Like The Simpsons has been for the last 25 years, they were shows that could be enjoyed by kids, but targeting an older audience. See, Saturday mornings weren't structured exclusively around cartoons, yet. They were more like a dumping ground for reruns and anything that wasn't working during prime time. It wasn't until around 1964 that CBS realized that a whole 10% of their profits came from Saturday morning programming. CBS president of daytime programming Fred Silverman quickly, aggressively moved to purchase programming specifically targeting kids, specifically cartoons. He started taking a lot more meetings and buying a lot more shows from studios like Hanna-Barbera and their competitor, another new studio, Filmation.
Now, yesterday and today, our theater's been jammed with newspapermen and hundreds of photographers from all over the nation, and these veterans agree with me that the city never has witnessed the excitement stirred by these youngsters from Liverpool. Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
1964 was also the year that the British invasion officially kicked off when the Beatles made their first appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show. February 9th is a day that continues to live in infamy as Americans, in particular young Americans, absolutely lost their minds when the Beatles rocked and rolled live on television. Al Brodax knew a winner when he saw it, and when he watched the Beatles on Ed Sullivan, he immediately reached out to their manager, Brian Epstein. Brodax had already produced cartoons for television based on King Features syndicate characters. The Beatles could slot right in next to Popeye the Sailor, Crazy Cat, Beetle Bailey, and Snuffy Smith. But the Beatles were more popular than all of those characters combined. Some might say more popular than Jesus. The Beatles cartoon debuted Saturday morning, September 25th, 1965, and immediately broke records. They put up ratings that no television executive could ignore, prompting CBS and NBC to start looking for their own version of the Beatles cartoon. In the meantime, to avoid direct competition with the Beatles, CBS and NBC instead went in the opposite direction. They chose to appeal to the market with superheroes and adventure cartoons instead of musical comedy. Filmation produced Superman, Superboy, and an anthology series featuring Aquaman, The Flash, Green Lantern, Hawkman, and the Teen Titans. Hanna-Barbera created Frankenstein Jr. and the Impossible, Space Ghost, Adamant, Secret Squirrel, the Herculoids, Moby Dick and Mighty Mightor, Birdman and the Galaxy Trio, and more. As the children's television market was saturated with superheroes, barbarians, and all manner of good guys punching out bad guys, parents groups around the country were concerned about the messages kids were receiving. Studies showed that the #1 thing kids did with their time was sleep. A close second was watch TV. And it wasn't just the violence that parents groups were concerned about. It was the advertising. It was the lack of representation. It was the kind of morality, or lack thereof, that was reinforced daily. It was the refusal to acknowledge that corporate advertisers, including the networks themselves, preyed upon kids who weren't old enough to know that they were being preyed upon. In January of 1968, concerned parents from Newton, Massachusetts founded Action for Children's Television, an advocacy group whose mission was to fight for changes in children's television programming standards locally and nationally. As far as Action for Children's Television was concerned, the assassinations of both Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy in 1968 served as a prime example of exactly what they created their organization to address. The ongoing struggle for civil rights throughout the U.S. had reached a point that political violence and the images broadcast on television were becoming commonplace, and it was everyone's job to make sure that children weren't exposed to that kind of imagery before they were old enough to understand. Violence was everywhere, all around them. Shouldn't at least some of the time they spend in front of the television be safe for them, intentionally, by design? They believed that it was the moral responsibility of networks to produce shows for kids that weren't intended to make a profit, but enrich the minds and lives of the children watching. The Beatles cartoon ended in October 1967 after 39 episodes over 3 seasons on ABC, prompting CBS Vice President of Daytime Programming Fred Silverman to look for a new series that would move those viewers to CBS. Around the same time, Filmation acquired the rights to the long-running Archie comics and thought the Archie show could be the new Beatles by turning them into a band and featuring original music in the series. Fred Silverman and Filmation head Lou Scheimer agreed that the pressure from parents groups meant children's television programming was going to change. With one eye on the wildly successful live-action Monkeys television series, he purchased The Archie Show from Filmation as soon as Scheimer walked in the door. The Archie Show premiered Saturday, September 14th, 1968 on CBS, picking up right where ABC's Beatles left off.
Hello?
Hello, Daphne. Do you like Scooby movies?
Of course. I was just about to watch the one with Sandy Duncan.
Ooh, that's my favorite. I can see you like popcorn with your movies.
What did you
Do
say?
you like popcorn with your movies?
That's not what you said. Where are you?
Hello, Daphne.
Good gag, huh? Can I have some popcorn?
Scooby movies all next week at 7 on Cartoon Network.
Ironically, it was CBS's Fred Silverman who was responsible for many of the violent cartoons being on television in the first place. It was CBS's Fred Silverman who bought nearly all of Hanna-Barbera's superhero and adventure shows produced between 1964 and 1967. In 1963, at just 25 years old, Fred Silverman was named head of daytime programming at CBS, where he quickly turned around CBS's Saturday fortunes, putting them at the top of the ratings, and in 1968, trying to get them back there with new, less violent programming for children.
Sugar. Oh, honey, honey.
The Archie show was so popular, they released songs from the episodes as singles. Sugar Sugar hit #1 in the US on the Billboard Top 100 music charts in 1969, Bang Shang-a-Lang hit number 22, and Feelin' So Good Scooby Doo hit number 53. We'll come back to that. To keep the momentum of the Archie show's success going, Silverman reached out to Hanna-Barbera about the possibility of another comedy series about another group of teenage musicians, but this time solving mysteries. He suggested using The Many Loves of Dobie Gillis starring Bob Denver as a possible jumping-off point for the characters. Joe Barbera put together a concept called House of Mystery, but ultimately passed the job to writers Joe Ruby, Ken Spears, and designer Iwao Takamoto. Barbera suggested that maybe they should put a dog on it since Fred Silverman likes dogs.
Well, Fred Silverman said he wanted to do a show with teenagers, and he wanted to be a comedy mystery.
Sort of either the Archie kids or like Dobie Gillis.
So we came up with a group of kids that were musicians, and we had the dog, which we called Too Much. Too Much was not a coward because it was a different situation. He was a bongo player, and they were just one of these musical groups that would travel around, and they'd fall into these mysteries.
He played bongos in the traveling mystery-solving band with Mike, Kelly, Linda, WW, and Jeff as the Mysteries 5. Just before they made their pitch to Fred Silverman, Ruby and Spears changed Too Much to a sheepdog out of concerns that a Great Dane might be too similar to the popular comic strip character Marmaduke. Silverman gave the pitch a big thumbs down. He told them to get rid of the band, he didn't like the dog, and he hated the title. The sheepdog was changed back to a Great Dane. The characters were more directly inspired by characters from Dobie Gillis. Mike got cut, Kelly was changed to Daphne, Linda became Velma, WW became Shaggy, and Jeff became Ronnie or Harvey, depending on who is telling the story. Regardless, it was Fred Silverman who suggested that they rename Jeff to Fred.
Everybody's so creative.
Silverman also suggested repurposing a title they had previously planned for a series with Bob Denver called Who's Scared? When they pitched the new series to the other CBS executives. Based on the concept art, Frank Stanton, president of CBS, thought the whole thing was all too scary. That's how he sounds. CBS was terrified that this show was going to incur the exact same wrath of action for children's television that the violent shows had. That they were going to be flooded with calls from parents that their kids couldn't sleep because they were too scared after watching the show. Silverman planned for Who's Scared to be the feature series in CBS's 1969 Saturday morning lineup. Unwilling to lose all the time and effort Hanna-Barbera had already invested, Silverman suggested Ruby and Spears turn down the spooky elements, turn up the comedy, and make the dog the star. The final piece that fell into place was the dog's name. Again, the story varies depending on who's telling it, but according to Fred Silverman, he was flying to meet with Ruby and Spears to discuss the changes to the show. As he listened to Frank Sinatra sing the Doobie Doobie Doo part of Strangers in the Night, he realized that was the perfect name. That is Scooby Doo. It's also possible that the Archie song Feelin' So Good Scooby Doo from 1968 was still kicking around in his brain as well. Either way, the name Scooby Doo stuck, and from there Silverman renamed the show Scooby Doo Where Are You? And CBS finally approved it. Scooby Doo was performed by voice acting veteran Don Messick, who previously voiced Astro on The Jetsons. Radio DJ turned actor Casey Kasem played Shaggy Rogers. Stefaniana Christopherson played Daphne Blake. Nicole Jaffe played Velma Dinkley. And surprise, surprise, it's our old friend Frank Megatron Welker as Fred Jones.
Scooby-Doo, where are you?
The original, largely instrumental Scooby-Doo theme was written by musical director Ted Nichols. It aired as the opening theme for the first broadcast of episodes 1 and 2 in 1969. The more familiar theme was written by David Mook and Ben Raleigh, performed by Larry Marks, and was originally used as the closing theme for episode 1. Starting with episode 3, the Mook theme was used as the main theme going forward, and the Nichols theme was used occasionally under the title cards. In season 2, the main theme was re-recorded by George Robertson Jr. Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Debuted Saturday, September 13th, 1969, and ran 17 episodes through January of 1970. Like the Archie show before, it was a ratings bonanza with as much as 65% of the audience tuned in to watch on CBS. Season 2 kicked off in September of 1970 with 8 new episodes for a total of 25. Stefaniana Christopherson retired from acting, so Heather North took over as the voice of Daphne. The final episode aired on October 31st, Halloween, 1970. Instead of making new episodes, CBS chose to air reruns of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? For the 1971 television season. What they found was that the ratings on the reruns were so strong that they had no choice but to bring Scooby Doo back, which they did as the new Scooby Doo movies. 16 episodes aired from September of 1972 through December of 1973, featuring many of the biggest television guest stars in the world: Sandy Duncan, Don Knotts, Phyllis Diller, the Three Stooges, the Harlem Globetrotters, Batman, and Robin. Season 2 of the new Scooby Doo movies ran 8 more episodes from September to December 1973 for a total of 24. After that, CBS went back to reruns of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Through 1976. As it turns out, the new president of entertainment at ABC was very interested in acquiring the rights to broadcast Scooby Doo, and that president of entertainment was Fred Silverman. 16 new episodes of Scooby Doo were produced and broadcast as one half of the Scooby Dynamite Hour on ABC September to December 1976. Another 8 episodes aired as part of All-Star Laugh Olympics in 1977. Technically, Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Returned for a 3rd season with 8 new episodes broadcast between September and October of 1978, with the original theme music and everything, courtesy of Joe Ruby and Ken Spears, who Fred Silverman brought in to supervise ABC Saturday mornings. However, the series was canceled halfway through, and the final 8 episodes aired as part of the new series, Scooby's All-Stars, through December 1978. That said, all 16 episodes were rerun in syndication under the name Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Scooby Doo has maintained his pop culture status over the years, bridging generations with reboots, reimaginings, reconceptualizations, new animation styles, new characters, and new media. Scooby Doo and Scrappy Doo, The 13 Ghosts of Scooby Doo, A Pup Named Scooby Doo, Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated, just to name a few. In fact, there are so many different series with so many different episodes featuring Scooby Doo that in 2004 he briefly overtook The Simpsons for the record of most episodes produced of any animated television series, and then gave it right back. Scooby Doo inspired a whole genre of shows centered on kids solving mysteries with their dog, their band, or their talking car, Josie and the Pussycats, Speed Buggy, Goober and the Ghost Chasers, Jabberjaw, and more. Scooby Doo, Where Are You? The original series has been rerun for decades and collected on home media. Scooby Doo and the back catalog are currently owned by Warner Brothers through a series of studio buyouts and corporate mergers. In fact, it was Warner Brothers that helped bring Scooby Doo and the Gang to live action for the first time with feature films in 2002 and 2004, and Warner Brothers who produced the most recent animated film Scoob, another attempted franchise reboot in 2020 that reveals the origin of Scooby's relationship with Shaggy and the launch of Mystery Incorporated with Fred, Daphne, and Velma. Scooby Doo, Where Are You? Was a product of the fight against violence, the crusade for better children's television, a perfectly blended mix of horror, adventure, and comedy that allowed children to indulge in the idea of being scared without actually being scared. It showed kids that no matter how unbelievable things might be, there was usually a rational explanation. There was always someone behind the monsters, the creatures, and the ghouls lurking in the dark, and they might have gotten away with it if it weren't for Scooby Doo. Hey! Thanks for watching. Please hit like, hit subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. Thank you very much to those of you who already are. Please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/toygalaxy. Several different tiers to address your specific Secret Galaxy content needs. Check out the Secret Galaxy merch shop at secretgalaxy.shop. All merchandise is physically in stock and ready to ship. Links to all of this in the description below, and let us know in the comments down below how many episodes of Scooby Doo, Where Are You? That you think you've actually seen. I feel like I've seen a lot, but after going through the various shows and reboots and really seeing how many episodes there are, I wouldn't be surprised if I've only seen 5 or 6 of the original series episodes. I've never sat down to watch the entire series from beginning to end, so it would have been episodes that just happened to air at some point when I had the TV on as a kid. I can't specifically remember ever seeing the iconic monster episodes, Black Knight, Space Kook, Creeper, but I do remember the Harlem Globetrotters, so it's possible I'm more of a new Scooby-Doo movies viewer than classic Scooby-Doo, or it's possible that the Globetrotters were more influential than Scary Monsters. I'll take Curly Neal over Ghost Clown every time.